Hello and welcome back. If you've not been here before, my name is Sam. Hi, I live here with my partner on our 3 acre smallholding in North Wales. I have just harvested all my sweet corn for the year. If you watched my previous video, we actually did the harvesting together and popped some in some whole corn on the cobs in some freezer bags and put them in the freezer as a way of preserving them. Now I'm going to try something I've never done before, which is pressure canning up some corn and freezing my own corn off of the cobs. So this is my first year growing corn. This is why I've never done this before, so I'm going to take you through with me and we'll see how it goes. So step one for me is to get these kernels off of the corn. I've looked at many ways to do this. I think what I'm going to go with, I'm going to get my silicone mat out and put it on my work surface here, and then just lay them flat and try to slice them off with a knife, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, so first things first, just peel the husks off. As I mentioned in my previous video, we do dry these out and use them as fire starters, both in our log burner here in the house and when we travel on the camping stove. I'm going to keep a tab where I keep all of the silks and the leftover cobs, and then I'll make corn stock out of those later. I'm honestly so chuffed with these, my first year growing corn. Aren't they bloody beautiful? I do believe this kitchen double knife is the sharpest one I own, so I'm just going to have to make the best of it and see how this goes. So I'm just going to go ahead and start slicing. Ooh, that's a bit deep. Okay, that wasn't so bad. I know I'm leaving a fair amount left on here, but at least I know I'm going to make stock out of them so it doesn't get wasted. Right, I'm just going to crack on and do this to the rest, and then we can get on dividing up between what's going in our jars and what's going in the freezer. This is going to be sticky. Canning, both water bath canning and pressure canning, is basically refers to the practice of preserving food in jars. You will find on the magical internet every single school of thought possible on this topic, which goes all the way from, follow the US government's advice, otherwise you're going to kill your family, all the way to stick hot food in a hot jar, bang a lid on it and call it good. So I think this is not something that I feel qualified to give advice on what you should and shouldn't do, but there is loads of information out there should you wish to glean it. And I think it's just helpful to be aware that there are different schools of thought. Now that being said, if in doubt, obviously always go with the safest option. There are things that are like lab tested, which basically means someone's made it enough times, sent it to a lab enough times, and they have guaranteed that there is no botulism in it. Now, as I say, I'm not going to go too in depth because I don't want to give anyone any advice here, But suffice to say, I do consider myself to be reasonably well educated in the topic. I don't talk about it much on this channel because it's not really relevant to what I do on here, but I do have a background in medicine, so I am very confident that I am not murdering my family with anything I do with regards to my canning. Now that being said, the reason I don't talk about it is that I don't want it to ever be taken as medical advice, anything I say on here, so please don't take this as advice, do your own research. But if you want to know what I do, then by all means go ahead and watch. Today I am going to be pressure canning this sweet corn. As I said, I'm going to do quite small batches because I've not done this before and I don't want to can up or freeze up a load of corn that is not very nice, because that would just waste it. Lots of effort went into growing this. So instead I'm going to do a couple of small batches. I've got some 300ml jars and I'm going to pack these into those because I think that's probably about the right amount for a serving. But that being said, I'm doing a small batch and the pressure canner is huge and I don't want to run the whole pressure canner half empty, so I'm going to do some other bits in there as well. I won't go through this today because it's another new recipe that I don't know if it's any good. If it's good, then I'll run you through it another time. So I had no idea how much this was going to do. We've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cobs here, and that's got me this amount, which is looking pretty good. So I'm going to set up the canner, get my jars ready, and we'll start putting these into jars. So this here is my pressure canner. This is a Presto, I think 23 quart canner. It's an American piece of kit. They're hard to find over here in the UK. We just have to ship them over. We don't have any manufacturers of pressure canners over here. Likewise, we don't have any manufacturers of 2-part lids. So on a lot of American canning information you'll find 2-part lids where they basically have a lid that goes on and then a ring that goes around the top. We don't have any manufacturers of those in this country, so most people use the lug lid, which is basically one of these, and that's what I'll be using today. I've not tried filming in my kitchen before. This is hard because my kitchen is small. It's easy outside, you've got all the space in the world. Right, anyway, I'm going to get my canner set up. Now this is entirely dependent on what kind of canner you have. They all come with a manual, follow it. So for me, I'm going to be raw packing this sweet corn, which means it's going to be cold, going into a cold jar, which means I need to fill my canner with cold water. So the amount of water that you'll put in is dependent on the canner, so just follow the manual. Mine has very helpful little notch lines in here to show me exactly what level I have to fill it to. So these little jars are 300ml, and as I say, I'm going to use these smaller jars compared to my 500ml ones. I'm going to do my beans in those, but I'm going to do my corn in these little ones. This here is just a funnel to help me get the corn in here without getting too much mess. I'm going to fill these jars to approximately 1 inch headspace, and then I'll top up with water. I think I've got enough corn to do 6 jars of these, which I think is a good amount. Even if we don't love them, I can eat 6 jars. And what I think I'll do, I know that some people put salt in with their canned corn. Leave that for a second. Which I don't know if that's a good idea for us. I think what I'll do is put salt in half of them and not put salt in the other half. So the salt I'm going to use is this. This is Hallamon, which is Anglesey sea salt. We are not far from Anglesey, which is an island off the north coast of Wales, and Hallamon produce this really fabulous sea salt. So I'm going to pop half a teaspoon, I would say, in these small jars into each of these, and then I will remember to mark those jars that I've put salt in them. Okay, so we've got 6 jars of corn here, 3 with salt in, 3 without. Now what I'm going to do is fill them with water up to that 1 inch headspace. It's 1 inch from the top of the jar, not from the shoulder, so bear that in mind if you're using jars like this. I'm going to fill them with water, I'm going to wipe around the rims, I'm going to get some lids on, and then we'll get them in the canner. Okay, so in here I have my 6 jars of sweet corn and 4 jars of other things that process for the same amount of time. So I am going to pop the lid on and then to get this ring on. I know some people have concerns about using these on glass tops, but as you can see I've got a glass top and I've used this on here many times. That being said, when we moved here this glass top wasn't new. I inherited this whole kitchen, so it's not in perfect condition, so I don't live in fear of being the first person to put a mark in it. I'll be canning this for 80 minutes because that is the amount of time that corn needs to pressure can for. Okay, so now that the pressure canner is on and coming up to temperature, I am going to get the remaining corn ready to go in the freezer. So in order to do that, I am going to blanch the cobs whole in some boiling water for a few minutes, then we'll transfer them to some cold water to stop the cooking process. Then we'll do exactly what we did over here, which is use the knife to take the kernels off of the cob, and then I'm just going to flash freeze those, and then once they're frozen I'll just put them in a freezer bag and then we'll have frozen corn in the freezer. So let's get to it. In the meantime, to make best use of my time in the kitchen, I'm going to pop all of those cobs, because there's enough to fill up the Instant Pot. I will pop those leftover cobs and all the silks and some of these. There's I don't know, maybe half a cup of corn left that didn't fit into the jars, so I'm going to pop that into the Instant Pot and set that going to make up some corn stock. Okay, so this here is my Instant Pot. I love the Instant Pot for making stock because it's just so much quicker to do it in a pressure cooker than it is to leave it on the hob for hours. So there are lots of complicated ways to do a corn stock. I'm not doing that today. I'm literally just going to bung this in here with some water and set it on high pressure for 20 minutes. Okay, just like that. And then we'll pressure cook, custom, for maybe 22 minutes, and then press start. And that's it. I'll just leave it alone. Okay. 1, 2. So in an ideal world they'd have gone into ice water. I didn't have any ice water, so instead I've just popped them in a jug of cold water and then just run some cold water over them for a couple of minutes just to make sure that the cooking process has completely stopped. Now they're cool enough to handle, I'm going to go ahead and chop the kernels off. Okay, so to pop these in the freezer, I'm going to use this plastic tub. I'm going to put a layer of parchment paper on the bottom, and then I will just keep building up layers of corn and paper, and then I'll put them in the freezer like this. So I will leave those corns in the freezer, in those layers, for a couple of hours, just until they're frozen solid, and then I'll pop that into a Ziploc bag, and then that can live in the freezer until we're ready to use it. It's not a huge amount, so I don't suppose it'll take us too long, but really it's just for the taste test, so that I can compare it to the canned corn that's in the canner right now. The canner has just started to vent, so I'll show you what that looks like. I don't know if you can see, but this is venting steam out of here. You might be able to see it better up here. And that means that it's to temperature. So I can set a timer for 10 minutes. I'll let it do this for 10 minutes and then we'll pop the weight on. Sorry, that's a bit noisy now. If you can hear me over it, this here is my 10 pound of pressure jiggler. So once that has entered the 10 minutes, I will pop this over the vent and this will hold it to a maximum of 10 pounds of pressure. Stock's done, so I'll leave that to natural pressure release for the next 20 minutes or so. As I say, once it's vented for 10 minutes, the weight goes on, then I keep an eye on the gauge, and when it gets to pressure, which is also when this will start to jiggle and release any excess pressure so that it holds it at that 10, at that point, that's when I start my 80-minute timer for corn. I like to set a timer for 80 minutes. Corn?
There's corn? No, it might be corn. I don't know. Well, we've gone back.
So the timer's gone off, it's processed for its full 80 minutes. I've just taken it off the heat and I'm going to leave it alone to come down from pressure naturally. So once it's come down to pressure, I can take the lid off, I will take the jars out and then I will just leave them on the kitchen side overnight and let them seal. And that's it. And that's it, the jars are out. It's about 9 o'clock in the evening now, so I am just going to leave these here overnight and in the morning we'll come and check on them and make sure they're all sealed. I have no reason to believe that they won't seal, but if they don't, it's fine, just go in the fridge and use them in the next couple of days. But assuming that they do, then tomorrow they'll be completely cool and they'll be able to go on the shelf. Let's grab that corn out of the freezer and bag that up and then we're done for the night. Empty as much air as I can out of this bag. Close the zip top. And I don't know what. Now that can go in the freezer. Well, thank you for joining me. I'm pretty chuffed with getting that much sweet corn preserved. It's all new to me, so I think what I'll do is I'll leave these for a couple of weeks. I don't want to open up the cans like straight away. I think it's good to let it sit for a little bit. So I'll leave it for a couple of weeks maybe, and then I'll do another video where we'll taste test them and see which way we prefer. So thank you very much for joining me, and see you next time. Cheers guys.